General's Program for Excellence continues to recognize and reward acts of great achievement and community service.
The first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the Good Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him?
The Governor General's Program for Excellence, GGPE, evolved in 2014 to become the umbrella for the two arms of the Governor General's Social Program. These are the Governor General's Achievement Awards, GGAA, and the I Believe Initiative, IBI. The GGAA started in 1991 under His Excellency Sir Howard Cook, paying recognition to Jamaicans aged 35 and over for their achievement in the face of great social and economic challenges. When Sir Kenneth Hall came into office, he expanded the GGAA to include 2 additional youth groups under age 35. Over the years, the biennial Diaspora Governor General's Achievement Awards is held recognizing community service and academic excellence of diasporans in the US, Canada, and the UK.
I have been a member of the Advisory Board of the Governor General's Achievement Award Scheme from its inception, and certainly I have been involved with its activities. I have experienced over that time a fantastic amount of work being done right across the length and breadth of Jamaica in terms of the excellence and the values that it seeks to promote among our people, particularly our young people.
The more we serve each other, is the better we'll be able to progress and give back. And when we serve each other, we learn to care. We learn to love each other. And if we love each other and care for each other, think about it, that is going to bring more peace in our community. And we will strive more from early days for justice.
In the Hadley Gap area in St. Thomas, a lot of Jamaicans in my community were still cooking on tree stone, were still using outside toilet, and I get the material out of my pocket and build toilet and build houses for the less fortunate in my community, and to feed them every week or every 2 weeks, and it really works. And this program helped me to continue to do that work.
Some people jump into volunteerism, they have a natural knack for doing things like these, where other people, it's something that we have to develop, and that's why I love this program, because it not only awards, but it allows us to develop these skills of volunteerism.
It's not just about volunteering and giving materialistic things. It can also be your time, because time is immeasurable and intangible, and it's something that more persons would value over materialistic things.
The I Believe initiative was launched in 2011 with the purpose of effecting change across Jamaica among the 15 to 35 age group. It is values-based and seeks to forge partnerships to strengthen families, youth, and education.
I had the privilege to be a judge in the summer of service that is a part of the I Believe program. And some of the programs that came out of the communities, we had students teaching other students to re-energize their surroundings, jobs like that over the summer to gain points toward an educational benefit. Community service like that is very important, and it is important to the individual to also learn to serve and to work toward what they want to achieve themselves.
With every endeavor inspiring is very important. I think you all know that I come from a background of the Olympic movement and sports, and for our athletes to achieve the best of their abilities and their full potential, they have to be inspired.
I think my most memorable experience is walking onto a platform and collecting a plaque which was engraved with an endorsement from the Governor General for my project, which is now an organization, JCAN. I think that changed my life, and it also motivated my team tremendously. In 2016, I was nominated for the Queen's Young Leader Award, which recognizes 60 young people across the Commonwealth who are driving social change in their countries. I recall having the start being when I received that SOS scholarship. I've had countless sessions with the Governor General. I've been in his presence so many times, and it's truly an honor. I think what makes it so easy for not only me but the other young people who have that opportunity is that he's such a people person and he loves young people.
Ibrahim, I am very proud of you being an I Believe ambassador.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what your experience has been.
It has been very tremendous for me.
Yes.
And I mean, I always cite that experience I had when you awarded me with the Summer of Service Scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And you said I was supposed to continue to serve. So, you know, having met the Governor General for the first time, I thought it was just more than a comment.
Yes.
It was a charge. So it was an amazing experience. It was very humbling.
Yes.
And in 2013, when I started, it wasn't foreshadowed that I would meet the Queen. I think what stands out for me the most about the GGPE is that somehow it manages to bring all the creative minds, all the innovators, the thinkers, the problem solvers from across Jamaica together in one setting. If investors, if companies want the best minds, they have to play an integral role in creating an atmosphere or sustaining a program that will help these creative minds to grow. An incubator, so to speak. I think this program is a good incubator for the leaders.
The people who have received these awards, the students who we help to get educated and who will come back and be the workers we want to employ, who will contribute to the building of the nation. That's a feeling that every company in Jamaica should want to experience. It is a great way for us to develop things.
So thank you, Ibrahim, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
As you continue to pursue your personal goals and the goals which can be useful in the development of our country.
Thank you.
We appreciate your service.
It is the volunteers of this nation that keep this nation alive and active, and it is a rewarding exercise. Through this act, it is my hope that others will replicate your example to energize their communities.
Which parish? Which one? Oh, hold on. I have to fix my blouse for this one. Let me see all the persons who are here from Manchester. Woo! Yes. Which other parish did I leave out? St. Catherine in the house? All right. Let's welcome their excellencies. You may be seated.
May I invite us to stand for prayer? Let us pray. Almighty and loving Father, we give you thanks for the love and kindness that you have so graciously demonstrated to us, not only in giving us the wonder of your Son, Jesus, but by making us in our right minds and taking us to this place for reflection, deliberations, and fellowship. We give you thanks that you continue to give us leaders who can inspire and bring us on the path that leads to self-actualization and fulfillment. For our Governor General Patrick, our Prime Minister Andrew, the leader of the opposition Peter, and all in positions of trust and authority, we lift up to you today, even as we pray for the people of this country, Jamaica land we love. Now, Father, as we come together with these your young people, in whose hands the future of tomorrow will be entrusted, we pray that you will so fill them with the consciousness of your divine presence. At every moment will be an opportunity to grow and learn and understand your purpose for their lives. When, O Lord, questions were asked about your kingdom and the way to get there, you held up a child as a sign of your love. You have always shown love and compassion to children and desire that they will come to an understanding of you. Today, then, we'll pray for those who have been tasked with the responsibility of guiding informing and educating us about this awful topic of human trafficking, which has become more and more pervasive and real in our world, and even in this our island home. A crime that undermines your will and purpose for our lives and represents a form of enslavement and exploitation and the violation of your law of liberty, freedom, and peace. So be with us today as we meet to inform, relate, and understand each other in a world where the forces of evil are becoming more and more evident among us and even threaten our very existence. Bless us now as we cease to know you and serve you, the one and only true God, from everlasting to everlasting. Amen.
Thank you so very much, Custis Perrin. You may all be seated. Thank you so very much. All right, so I'm trying to remember if I left out any parish. A very good morning again. Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen and Lady Allen, very great to see you this morning. Did I leave out any parish? No? Which one did I leave out? St. Thomas? Anybody from St. Thomas in the house? Okay. Did I hear somebody say Portmore? Portmore is not a parish, ladies and gentlemen. It may be overseas, but it's still a part of St. Catherine, all right? Trelawney in the house this morning? All right. Do we have Jamaica in the house this morning? All right, so that covers everybody. Again, a very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the National Youth Consultative Conference 2019. Today's theme, Stop Human Trafficking. And I know that we're all on social media. Are we all on social media? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whichever other one. All right, so we want to ensure that we push this on social media so that other persons will become aware of what we're doing here today. And so I'm going to ask if you're going to post a picture, post a status from here today, that you use the hashtag YCC2019. YCC 2019. And a little birdie just told me that the person who either tweets or makes a post on Instagram, Facebook, the person who does it the most will receive a prize at the end of today. All right? So get those fingers moving and make sure that you tweet about it, make an Instagram post about it, Facebook it, as we say, so that others will know what our mission here today is. I want to just salute a few persons this morning. Again, and we can't say it enough, Their Excellencies the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen. Can you put your hands together for them this morning? Major Lieutenant Garth Anderson, representing, no, it's Major Garth Anderson, representing Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, Chief of Defense Staff. Where are you, sir? Good morning to you. All right, he's right here at the front. Put your hands together for him this morning. Host Custos, the Honorable Conrad Pitkin, and all other custodes and their spouses. Good morning to you. Put your hands together for them. Mrs. Carol Palmer, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, and Chairperson of the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons. Good morning to you. Where are you? Put your hands together for her. Mr. Diane Gordon, that's not Mr., Mrs. Diane Gordon Harrison. Good morning to you. National Repertoire on Trafficking in Persons and Children's Advocates. Can you just stand for me because I don't think person saw you a while ago? Yes, very beautiful lady here. Put your hands together for her. Other heads of ministries and agencies, universities and colleges. Let me see all of you just wave your hands. Good morning to you. conference presenters, corporate sponsors, partners, ladies and gentlemen, teachers and students, young people, mature people, I don't call anybody old, boys and girls, a very, very good morning to you. Can you again put your hands together for yourselves this morning? Thank you so very much for being here. Now let me officially greet you and extend a warm welcome to the Governor General's annual National Youth Consultative Conference here at the Montego Bay Conference Center. Now this year's conference focuses on human trafficking and is put on in conjunction with the National Anti-Trafficking Unit at the Jamaican Constabulary Force, among other stakeholders. We're happy to have each and every one of you here. Thank you so very much for traveling from far and near to be a part of today's conference. Now, Jamaica, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, is not only seen as a country of origin for trafficking in persons, but all three parts of the trafficking chain are present here in Jamaica. I'm going to say that again. We are not only known or seen as a country of origin for trafficking in persons, but all three parts of the trafficking chain are present in Jamaica. And you will hear much more about that as the conference proceeds. Now that means that our country, even though small, is also a transit route and a destination for victims. This makes the importance of today's conference even greater. Now, I am very eager to hear the discussions we will have today on trafficking in persons. And this is a very serious violation of human rights, very serious, affecting thousands both locally and worldwide. Now, they call it the modern-day slavery of our time. Modern-day slavery. And I know that we don't even like to hear the term slavery. So why are we continuing to allow this to happen? And I say allow this to happen because I honestly think that for some of us, we can do something. We see things, but we not say nothing. We hear things, not my business. We have to ensure that we play our part in stopping human trafficking. And so this is one of the purposes of today's conference. Now, I'm going to now invite our host Custos, the Honorable Conrad Pitkin, to officially make us welcome to the parish of St. James. Can you put your hands together for him as he comes?
Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen, Major Garth Anderson, representing Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, Chief of Defense Staff, Assistant Commissioner of Police for Area 1, Mr. Donovan Graham, custodies and their spouses, Mrs. Carol Palmer, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, and the Chairperson, National Task Force Against Trafficking in Person, Mrs. Diane Gordon-Harrison, National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Person and Children's Advocate, other heads of ministries and agencies, universities and colleges, conference presenters, corporate sponsors, partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, teachers and students, young people, mature young people, boys and girls, members of the media, a pleasant good morning. Good morning. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, whether you have traveled a significant distance to be here or you are from nearby, I'm extremely happy to see you here today. Therefore, it is my honor to welcome you all to the Governor General's National Youth Consultative Conference 2019, which is a part of the Governor General's Program for Excellence, and also to be your host for the second year in succession. Ladies and gentlemen, you all will agree with me that Montego Bay Convention Center is indeed the place to be today. A very special welcome to our Governor General, Sir Patrick Allen, to Lady Allen and their daughter, the Honorable Mrs. Carol Palmer, Major Garth Anderson, our custodies, National Coordinator, Miss Sonia Sims, and the staff of King's House, our sponsors, our presenters, and others. This event would not have been possible without the support of each and every one of you, especially the teachers and students here today. Your presence and participation are important to this conference's success. The objectives of the Governor General's Program for Excellence is to motivate and inspire our young people to believe in themselves and to achieve their God-given potential and to give service to their country. The focus for today's conference is human trafficking. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery from which traffickers profit from the control and exploitation of others. It demeans human dignity. It is the world's second largest criminal industry. Young people, I implore you today to learn the facts about human trafficking. This conference provides an avenue which will empower you to spread the awareness about topical issues which can affect you. Therefore, from your deliberations and discussions, you should be able to take away valuable insight. It is my sincere hope that owing to our relentless endeavors, this conference will achieve its expected outcomes and will give all the youths and other participants here today a renewed sense of urgency and a clear roadmap for the fighting and defeating of human trafficking. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, teachers, students, participants, welcome again, and I wish all of you a fruitful conference. God bless you, and God bless Jamaica land we love.
Thank you so very much, Custis, the Honorable Conrad Pitkin, and again to all the other custodies and their spouses, a very, very good morning to you. We're now going to welcome to the podium National Coordinator for the GGPE, Miss Sonia Sims. She's coming to bring her remarks. Please put your hands together for her as she comes.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Van Wyckoff. Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen, Honorable Custodies, Host Custos, and spouses of custodies, Mrs. Carol Palmer, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology, and Chairperson for the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons, Mrs. Diane Gordon-Harrison, National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons and Children's Advocate, other heads of ministries and agencies, universities and colleges, conference presenters, corporate sponsors, partners, ladies and gentlemen, teachers and students, good morning. It gives me great pleasure to say the YCC is finally here again. The annual Governor General's, I Believe, Youth Consultative Conference is arguably the most anticipated event on the Governor General's Program for Excellence annual calendar of activities, because we are able to invite you in a space like this to discuss pertinent issues, meet new friends, and make young people better equipped to face some of the many challenges which may confront them daily. We have also seen the evolution of the Governor General's Consultative Breakfast into the county conferences and now the annual YCC, the third year in a row, and the second consecutive year at the Montego Bay Convention Center. Seeing this morning's turnout, and we anticipate a lot more due to traffic, this reinforces our hope, which is encapsulated in the I Believe Initiative mantra, which states that we can and we are and we will use the things that are right with Jamaica to fix the things that are wrong with Jamaica. Today we turn focus on one of the wrongs facing our society, human trafficking, the modern day slavery. I want to share with you some context. Imagine with me, Jamaica, the pearl of the Antilles. It boasts international names such as Bob Marley, Usain Bolt, Louise Bennett Coverley, and Marcus Garvey. It is the birthplace of reggae music, delectable cuisine, and a colorful Jamaican dialect. It is also the sweet land of wood and water, a source, transit, and destination country for adults and children trafficked for the purposes of sexual exploitation, organ harvesting, and forced labor, the most heinous of crimes. What does that mean? Each and every one of us sitting in this room this morning or joining us via our social media platforms could become that person who is trafficked. Trafficked because we want a way out of our living situation. Trafficked because we are looking for quick money or growth. And trafficked because of who we meet or met on social media. The results devastating. It is my hope that from the many engagements, presentations, and perspectives that will be presented, you will be empowered to be advocates in your homes, schools, and communities, to develop the conversation and share the information you have learned when you lead. Everyone here today is invited as part of that right to fix the wrong with Jamaica. This conference would not have been possible without the many speakers and panelists. Engage them, youngsters. Ask them your question. Give them your suggestions. Speak up and speak out throughout the course of the day. We encourage you to give us your fullest attention as we work to #Stop Human Trafficking Now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Sims. There is nothing wrong with Jamaica that cannot be fixed with what is right with Jamaica. Right at this time, His Excellency, the Most Honorable Governor General of Jamaica, Sir Patrick Allen, will now come to address us.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to join in recognizing everyone who is here present this morning for our Youth Consultative Conference. Honorable Custodies, Major Garth Anderson representing the Chief of Defense Staff, or members of the security forces, ACP Graham and DSP Carl Berry, who heads the Jamaica Constabulary Force Anti-Trafficking in Persons Unit. We recognize our other permanent secretaries, particularly Mrs. Palmer and Mrs. Dan Gordon Harrison, and other representatives from agencies and organizations, and presenters, I believe ambassadors, sponsors, or delegates. Lady and I are very pleased to be with you for our annual Youth Consultative Conference. As you know, These conferences have become one of the highlights on the annual calendar of the Governor General's social program. The conference provides young people with an opportunity to share their ideas on topical issues that affect them and that affect the country as a whole. In past years, we have discussed various topics, including the Logistic Hub Initiative, integrity, youth and community involvement, youth empowerment, drug abuse, and volunteerism. Following on our robust discussion on mental health last year, right in this conference center, the IBI ambassadors have suggested that we lend our support on the cause of fighting the emerging pandemic, human trafficking. Today we will hear of the ways in which we can assist and commit ourselves to this ongoing complex problem. Given the explosion of activity and the information on the subject, our IBI ambassadors feel that we should address this topic, and we are doing so in this year's iteration of the Youth Consultative Conference. We have seen numerous newspaper articles, television documentaries, reports, and discussions highlighting the problems of human trafficking. And you may ask yourself, that's a big question, what is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery, as you have heard, which exploits persons for monetary gain. It is something that happens in other countries, but it is also active right here within our shores in Jamaica. Going back to 2005, the government of Jamaica established the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons. In that same year, the Jamaica Constabulary Force set up the Anti-Human Trafficking in Persons Unit, headed by DSP Carl Berry. To date, almost 80 persons have been rescued without incident. The National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, Children's Advocate, Mrs. Diane Gordon Harrison, in her report in July 2018 observed, and I quote, "Trafficking in persons remains an issue that has the capacity to threaten Jamaica's economic and social stability." End of quote. That 138-page report is an eye-opening document which highlights the enormity of the situation that faces us in Jamaica. Both, well, the chairman, Permanent Secretary Palmer, Mrs. Harrison, DSP Berry, and others have fearlessly and relentlessly given advocacy and action in relation to human trafficking. I commend them for their vigilance and hard work in bringing public awareness to this vital issue and working assiduously to save our children. Please give them a round of applause, all the persons involved. Despite the Trafficking in Persons Act, which was passed in 2007 and further amended in 2018, the practice of trafficking continues unabated. According to the Global Slavery Index, Jamaica is ranked 117 out of 167 countries and has a Tier 2 rating. So therefore, we are of the understanding that human trafficking is prevalent. It is the third largest criminal activity in the world, and it is a $9 billion industry. Unfortunately, even countries that are signatories to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and human rights speaks about torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment or punishment. Such countries have no difficulty in practicing human trafficking. Unfortunately, young people between the ages of 18 and 35 are most vulnerable. It is estimated that 27.9 million adults and 13 million children right around the world are victims of human trafficking. And not just for labor, but also for organ harvesting. Young people, the social networking service that we love so much, which have become an integral part of our lives, has the potential to be used by unscrupulous persons to facilitate human trafficking. And I share an example with you. A recent Newsweek article tells of the ordeal of Ina Matsuoka, a member of the J-pop group in Japan, who was stalked by a man who had pieced together her location from photographs she posted on social media. The reflection of a bus stop was visible in her eyes, and he used Google Street View to find the area of her home. He used other photographs to determine her apartment, where he waylaid her and sexually assaulted her. That all happened on social media. Trafficking human trafficking is something that we must prevent. And let's look at some solutions today. But let me also commend the initiative of the Trafficking in Persons curriculum, which was introduced in secondary schools in September 2015. And in May of this year, the Port Antonio High School created history when they became the first high school, or the first school in the island of Jamaica, to establish an anti-human trafficking club. Are they here? Port Antonio High, are you represented? Unfortunately, they are not here, but we want to commend them for that initiative. The program was rolled out in all schools last month, and I am sure DSP Berry will tell you more about this project. In July 2017, I had no hesitation in signing the proclamation marking the last week in July as Trafficking in Persons Week, and July 30 as World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. Since then, each year, Jamaica joins the rest of the world in observing this day. Today, in our YCC, we want to thank the individuals who have made possible this event by their input, by their effort, and by their interest. I recognize the custodians who have worked assiduously to gather the young people from all across the country to take them here safely, who will also see that they get back home safely. Thank you. Our IBI ambassadors and their management committees, our sponsors, listed in your program brochure, you will see them there, those who have made this program possible. The GGPE National Coordinator, the staff at King's House, and all others who have given of their time and talent for this day's production, which we hope will be extremely successful. Today we want to engage you, our IBI family, in a vibrant discussion of this very important subject. Let's talk candidly so that the next generation of nation builders are knowledgeable and harness their efforts against human trafficking. If we want to act responsibly and help this national effort against human trafficking, it is everyone's duty to be wise, to open your eyes, to spot them, stop them, and report them. Thank you so much. Let's talk.
Thank you so very much, Sir Patrick Allen. Can you put your hands together for him one more time? I now invite the Herbert Morrison High School Band. They're coming to perform the I Believe song. And I want you to focus on the lyrics. We must believe that we can make a change in Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, the I Believe song.
We must also sing, oh, I believe that we can make a change, spread a gleam of hope across our country. I believe that we can join our hands and make a difference in Jamaica. I believe. I believe. I see it in every paper and in every classroom. I believe. Yeah, Christ in all our churches and God in all our homes. Oh, I believe. Oh, it's time to claim our nation and start the reformation. I believe that we can make a change, spread a gleam of hope across our country. I believe that we can join our hands and make a difference in Jamaica. I believe that we can make a change, spread a gleam of hope across our country. I believe that we can join our hands and make a difference in Jamaica. I believe. I believe. I believe that we can make a change and spread a gleam of hope across our country. I believe that we can join our hands and make a difference in Jamaica.
I believe. Somebody say, I believe. There is nothing wrong with Jamaica that cannot be fixed with what is right with Jamaica. Thank you so very much to the Herbert Morrison High School Band. Put your hands together for them one more time for that beautiful rendition of the I Believe song. Now we're going to go straight into our first session, which will give us a global view of the phenomenon of human trafficking. And this session will be led by Deputy Superintendent of Police, Carl Berry, head of the Anti-Trafficking Unit in the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And I'm going to invite right at this time, Ms. Christina Williams, IBI Ambassador. She's coming to moderate this segment. Please stay tuned and get the necessary information. And remember to tweet about us, Facebook about us, Instagram about us, and use the hashtag YCC2019. Miss Christina Williams.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Barnaby-Koff. Good morning, everyone. No, man, we just listened to that beautiful rendition. We should feel, that smile should be on our faces because we believe that all is right with Jamaica. What? Let us repeat the mantra. What is the mantra? No, man. We'll try it again. Let's repeat the mantra together. To fix wrong with Jamaica. All right. So, to give a global overview is Deputy Superintendent Colberry, and he holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of the West Indies, Mona, and a Master of Science in Forensic Psychology and Criminal Investigations from the University of Liverpool in England. He's a detective and an authorized financial investigator who has spent over 26 years serving in several areas with the Jamaica Constabulary Force. He currently heads the CTAC's Anti-Trafficking in Persons Vice Squad and has received training and mentorship from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, French, Colombian, and United Kingdom Police in cyber crimes, human trafficking, economic crimes, anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism, identity theft, intellectual property rights, copyright and trademarks, and other financial criminal investigation. He's a community person and a sports enthusiast whose ultimate goal is to also become a philanthropist. Ladies and gentlemen, let's make DSP Carl Berry feel welcome. And just to note the structure of the presentation, he will present and afterwards we'll open the floor for questions and also from social media.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, other distinguished guests, students, may I wish you well. My task is to really sensitize you on what human trafficking looks like within the global context. Now, you may notice that I have some things on the lectern, and I won't reveal what they are yet. I need, though, to recognize, as His Excellency would have said, Port Antonio High School for being the first school in the entire world to have started an ATIP club in their school, and that has rappelled across. So I guess that must be a clap, clap moment. Can I solicit a clap? Now I have a few questions, and I hope that I'll be able to answer the questions and ask the questions for you to answer them. All right, so human trafficking. Is there anybody inside here who will be able to stand up and tell me what human trafficking is? Am I allowed to go on the floor? Can I pull this mic? Brilliant. All right. So is there anybody, you are going for the first prize? You want to just say it quickly? What's your understanding of what human trafficking is? It's an exchange of service. For sexual gratification mainly. Okay. And a financial income there. All right. MNS, you are here. Task Force, you are here. Please note, because the person who gets it right will get one of our prizes. I will mark the paper shortly. Can we get some walking mics, please? Go ahead. What's your impression of what human trafficking is?
Good afternoon. Good.
Thank you.
All right, the mic was given a little challenge, but the little I heard is you saying that it includes abducting somebody for sexual gratification, etc. You're getting warm. One last response.
Good morning. My name is Abigail. I'm over here. I'm to your left.
Brilliant.
My name is Abigail Scarlett. According to what the Governor General said, human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. It includes organ harvesting, includes sex trafficking, and also forced labor.
Whoa. Well, and she quoted the Governor General, so guess what? She has done herself the service. May I invite you to at least receive from us. Gracias, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Great job. Really? Much better. Thank you. May I ask you to clap, please? All right. So we are going into what the meat of the matter is. I'll comment on the other scores shortly. So it's really human trafficking. You now know that it is of global concern. It is said that a global problem can never be fixed by one country, a few countries, never. Instead, what we want is this global fix, and that's what we're trying to achieve. The big question is, what really is human trafficking? Do you know the 16 ways in which a person can be trafficked? What if I were to give you 10? Would you be able to populate the other 6? I created a slide for this moment. So it's coming up, and you'll see all the ways in which a person can be trafficked. No. How many persons inside here would have been on the dark side of the internet? May I see a show of hands? Just one student. So I was talking, I see another finger. I was talking to 500 children in a particular parish that will be named soon. And I asked them when I reached this slide if they have ever been on the dark web, and I saw enough fingers to point me in a worrying situation. No, the bad thing about the dark internet is that it exists. What is on the dark internet? I'm sure when Romulus comes in from Romania today, you'll hear much more. But if you were to Google Silk Road 2.0 or Silk Road 3.0, you'll get a good appreciation of what the FBI did when they pulled down a human trafficking, drug trafficking, and pedophile ring that was occurring and still being practiced on the dark web. I urge you to take a look at that. They use the Tor browser, that's the onion router. What does that do? It disguises them. It doesn't show where they are at, and that's what criminals like. And guess what? The currency of choice is Bitcoins. Food for thought. Having regard to the dark web and what will be discussed, how many of us inside here, if we were to see somebody could determine that that person is a victim of human trafficking? What are the signs you're supposed to look for? All of that we will include in this short journey across the slides. So if we were to add up the 300 years of the slave trade, add those who did not necessarily make it in, what for sure you'll get is a number less than what we're at now. The fact is, there are more slaves currently in the world than at any other point in the human's history. For those who are researching the subject, you can go to the U.S. Department of State website and you'll get much more in that vein. So we'll continue. The year 2000 was of significance and still is. What happened in the year 2000? At the United Nations, we finally defined what human trafficking was. And we have been using that definition so far to make sure that we interpret properly this crime. So we are going to concentrate efforts on the protocol to prevent, suppress, punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. Now, my next question to you is, if you were to be convicted in Jamaica for human trafficking, and the trafficking occurred with children, or you drugged out the victim, what's the maximum penalty you could get? I can give a clue. What's the maximum penalty you could get? There's a rush to the mic now, correct? There's a rush to the mic. Not really the answer I'm looking for yet, but you're close there. Go ahead with the right answer. Say what school you're from first.
Okay, my name is Chardonnay Lewin.
Who is speaking? Oh, this side is the winning side, is it? Go ahead.
I am Chardonnay Lewin. I currently attend University of Technology. I believe that you could get, I know that you could get life imprisonment for human trafficking.
Not the answer I'm looking for. It depends on how you interpret life. But I'm looking, I gave a clue. Should I give the clue again?
Good evening, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I am to your left.
Over here.
Brilliant. I'm seeing you now.
My name is Shade Martin. I am from the Ferncourt High School, and I believe that the maximum penalty for being convicted of human trafficking is instant death.
Okay. That's not the answer I'm looking for yet. Just one response. Who is up next?
My name is Ronaldo Humes, and I attend the Granger High School, and the maximum penalty is 25 years to life imprisonment.
Oh.
Hello?
Hello.
No. All right, we can't take any more, but the reality is, okay, since you're at the mic, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Sasha.
My name is Diandra Campbell. I attend the University of Technology, and I believe the maximum penalty is 35 years without the possibility of parole.
Not the answer I'm quite looking for. Since you were talking, just let me end with your response, please.
I was actually about to say 35 years.
Oh, no. So if you are convicted and the ruling is that aggravated circumstances were at play, meaning that the victim was a child or the victim was drugged out, you can get a maximum with our amendment of 30 years in prison. Fair enough? So please note that for the end of today's event. Now, I'm populating the slides for you, and you'll see sex trafficking being one manifestation. You have child trafficking being another manifestation. That's for people who are under children, the age of 18. Forced labor being one other manifestation. We have domestic servitude. We have debt bondage, child soldiers. And did you know that if you force people to join up, gangs, etc., that is an exploitative situation. and may lead to a charge of human trafficking. That's for a fact. We'll ask the monitor to just press as you go along for me, please. We have forced begging. We have organ harvesting. Mind you, we are not saying all these manifest itself in Jamaica, but we do have those. We also have forced marriage as a manifestation. Is there anybody who wants to at least fill one in for me? I've given you 10 so far. Can you give me at least one more? There's a finger there. Go ahead. Religious cult. I see where you can go, especially what's happening, but I will reserve on the religious cult for the minute. Go ahead. Forced marriage.
Organ harvesting.
Hello. I'm Shaq here.
Organ harvesting.
From
I said organ harvesting and I said forced marriage, which means that we are looking for one more still. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Margaret Dennis. I'm from the Christiana High School, and I think it is prostitution.
All right. That would come under sex exploitation. So it would be sex trafficking? No. So have you ever heard about sex tourism? Yes. It's really a term used for people who travel to a destination for the main reason to engage youngsters in the main in sexual activities. There's another side to it called romance tourism, the rent-a-dread scenario. But this is kind of the opposite of that scenario. So those are 12. And in Cambodia recently, I suggest, having rescued now in excess of 96 victims of trafficking, the most recent being 2 days ago, where we rescued a Chinese national, a male, who was trafficked from mainland to here. It stands to reason that we have a fight on our hands. Surrogacy was recently picked up in Cambodia as a manifestation for human trafficking. And I'll list the other three soonest. All right? So please, for your records, note that. We need a plan of action. The reality is that this crime is poised to consume us if we're not careful. We need to end child exploitation. We must end human trafficking. Better yet, we have no choice but to so do. My question to you students is that, do you have any ideas as to how we can fix this? I'm sure at the end of the day, we'll be in the best position to craft those strategies. We need the plans and we need them now. We have to ensure that traffickers feel what they are dishing out. And we have the laws to make sure that they are punished appropriately. It is now your time to ensure that the information gets back to us and we can do what we must do. All right, so we move across slide. Mr. Slide, please press on for me. So, what have we done locally? We have, through the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Person, which is that governmental body, and the chairperson is here, we have crafted several intervention strategies to make sure human trafficking works. We have not only created space within the school's curriculum, but we have also created comic books. You must have seen those in the information that you picked up when you just came. How many inside here have read or at least seen the comic books? Just 3, 4? Well, the good thing is that they're in your books now. So you need to, in your little package, so you need to pay attention to those. We have permanently displayed 3 human trafficking syndicates operating in the Western Belt, in St. Catherine and in Kingston. Permanently closed down 3 establishments, and we are going after the others because we must. We have decided as an organization, being the police force, that we will not rest on our laurels. My next question to you, which will be the penultimate question, do you know what Jamaica's tier ranking is? We have about 10 fingers going up. Mr. Mike, can you get the person for me? Wouldn't be right.
Tier 2.
Wouldn't be right. Is there anybody else?
My name, Tier 3. Tier 3.
I'm a praying person, and I'm praying that we never, as a country, were to achieve that tier grading. Final response.
My name is Tanisha Singh, and I think it's tier 2. We are ranked 117 out of 167 countries.
Not correct.
That was
not correct. So the correct response is, because I know time won't be our best friend, our correct response is that Jamaica is currently sitting on the tier 2 upper deck. So let me explain what the tier ranking looks like. So every year, the United States Department of State ranks every country except Grenada and St. Kitts. They have a 4-tier ranking system. You have tier 1, tier 2 upper, tier 2 watch list, and the dreaded tier 3. Now, if you stay or remains on the tier 2 watch list for 2 consecutive years, you're automatically pushed off to tier 3, which means that it can impact the foreign direct flow of investment. Sanctions could be a part of what you could get. Jamaica stayed on the watch list for a year. When we realized that 2 years would be just too long, we decided that much more needed to be done. Much more was done. And to date, I can say, and it must be a clap, clap moment, that we are just behind the best. We are now on the upper deck. So it is tier 2 upper. Fair enough? It must be a clap, clap moment. Now, Jamaica has a tagline for human trafficking. The tagline is, be wise. Open up your eyes. Too many of us have eyes, but somehow we're not seeing the things we should see, especially as it relates to this crime. Spot them. But I urge caution. Do not try to be that superhero. Remember, human traffickers are major criminals, and they have no difficulty with inflicting pain. So we ask you to call us. I'll give you some numbers and you'll get some more nonetheless. 311, that's Crime Stop Jamaica. Anonymous. 1888-PROTECT. You can just scroll your keypads and you'll see what that pans out to be. That's predominantly for child victims. You can call us at 967-1389, 922-3771. Those are just some numbers. Remember, you have Honor TIP, which is the National Rapporteur on Trafficking in Person. You also have the Office of Children Advocate. You have the Ministry of National Security and the Ministry of Justice. So what does the crime look like in Jamaica? Whilst I move towards the departure lounge, I must put on screen some of our realities. The push factors meaning what could cause you to want to leave Jamaica right now, remains poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunities. We also have, in our scheme of things, 4 groups that are predominantly targeted. The misuse, children, it doesn't matter what age group it is. Just recently, and kudos to the Jamaica Defense Force, who in partnership with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, rescued 21 Honduran kids. They were between ages 13 to 15. And what we found was they had visible gunshot wounds to their bodies. What were they doing? They were working for 3 weeks at a time, 18 hours per day, and they were being paid $20 for the 3 weeks work. They showed all the signs of being battered, and kudos to the task force and the people who gave up time during that Christmas period. And what we did was to successfully rescue those 21 kids. We also had to repatriate them from Jamaica to Tegucigalpa in Honduras. And what was bad about it is that they were from Honduras but did not speak Spanish. What language did they speak? Mosquito. Have you ever heard the language? Have you ever spoken the language? Well, we have a detective, very strong, who is fluent in it. So we were able to communicate and use the situations that we have. Now, 7 convictions looked low. If you were to put the other 17 English-speaking Caribbean countries together, they would not, as a group, amount to even half of our successful rate for convictions, which means that the crime of human trafficking still remains something that is a moving target. The reality across the world is that the traffickers hardly ever get convicted. And the simple reason for that is because the victims don't necessarily want to report. 2, some are too scared to report. And did you know that you have victims who do not know that they are victims of human trafficking? Absolutely. Just recently we rescued a female, and what she told us was that when she involves herself in the sex trade in Jamaica, she gets, for example, $1,000. When she go overseas, she can earn $1,000, meaning 100 US, for each attempt. So she saw that as a benefit, as opposed to the fact that she was still being trafficked. And those are the realities of human trafficking. So whilst I move towards this final slide to allow time and space for questions, I want you to remember that the criminals are after you. It depends on what the model of the criminality is. Then you may be the next target. So across the world right now, we know that they are forcing people to get married. And if you were to just Google Boko Haram, you'd realize that they took away 300 Chibok girls. And they forced them on to marriage. Just remember, whilst I go to the departure gate, that there are some online challenges that you will have to face. They include lottery scam. We know that. However, as we drill down, we realize organ harvesting. We realize that cyber crimes. And guess what? The data now shows, just as you have heard from His Excellency, that the criminals are ramping up their recruiting mechanism on social media. Where are they now? They are on both sides of the internet. They are on the regular internet and they are on the dark web. There's also a deep web, which is just a space between the regular web and the dark web. If you stick around, you'll hear much more from Romania with respect to deep web, dark web, and the Tor browser. Having said that, though, it is time for us to recognize that human trafficking is for real. It is actually on the up. Globally, the data is showing that the efforts are really reaping some rewards, but the end game is to end human trafficking. We need to make sure that those who benefit from the crime do not sit around and have fun. They do not engage us, and we want to make sure with the partnership we have with NIA that corruption is not a part of it. Just remember, criminals are using advanced encryption devices and software to ensure that they get to their prey. Who are they targeting? Humans. I urge you, especially the students who are technologically savvy, to make sure that you pay attention to how you use the internet. Use it smartly. Use it wisely. Do not allow yourselves to be trafficked. Let me end here and allow space for you to drill your questions in. Might I thank you?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Berry. I'm going to ask for another round of applause, please. I believe it was a very comprehensive presentation. You looked at a lot of different areas, some very relatable to us right here at home. And then we're going to open the floor for questions. I'm also going to ask you some questions as well, DSP, but I'm also going to allow the first question to come from the floor. So you'll notice that there are individuals in the yellow shirts, Mark, I believe, they have microphones, and you should just go to that person or raise your hand, and they will have a microphone ready for you. So who is the first person? All right, there's a hand right here, right at the front right here. There's a young man in the white. I think he's from Maritime, right? Please introduce yourself and your school.
Good afternoon. My name is Shane Richards. So my question to you, sir, is how the police department and also other entities are partnering to help share this information to the wider society, so we can analyze and help to mitigate against this phenomenon.
Absolutely brilliant question, if I might stand and answer. The Jamaica Constabulary Force was the first police entity within CARICOM to have started an anti-trafficking person unit. Since then, in excess of 250,000 individuals have been directly impacted by us. We don't necessarily count those who are feeding through social media like what is happening now. We have a program in New York. Each May, we go into New York and we lecture students there. We have a program in Jamaica that calls us to be in every school. Our next school will be Troy I. Is Troy I in the house? Troy is here. We are heading to you next. But we go to schools, we go to universities, we go to churches, every space and any space, because this message must be passed to every citizen.
All right, thank you so much, DSP. All right, while we get another question, I'm going to ask a question to the floor because we also have some prizes that we want to give away, and we have a limited amount of time. So, how many children, in the last part of your presentation, DSP Berry mentioned an amount of children that were actually rescued. Who remember what number that was? All right, let's get somebody from in here because we have had persons from that side and that side. Let's get someone from in the middle right here. Okay, go ahead with the microphone. Name and school, please.
My name is Naveen Blake from Anchovy High. I think that he mentioned 21 children.
I'm sorry, not 21. But that number is in there, but it's not 21. All right, another one. All right, let's try from right here. We want to give everyone a chance, all parts of the room. Remember name and school.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fabian Douglas, and I am from the Alberton High School, and I think the amount of persons rescued was 96 victims.
Repeat that, please, sorry.
96 children.
That were?
96 children.
No, I said I were rescued.
96 children were rescued, miss.
That's
no,
not the
96 is the grand total. That includes adults.
Christina?
All right, we're going to have one last try before we do a different question. All right? Go ahead, right there.
I'm not certain, but my name is Kenika Morris from the University of the West Indies. I think it was 26, 27, something along that line.
Well, the good thing is that we're not sure if we can reward you because it's...
All right, we're gonna change the question. All right, so Jamaica's tier ranking. Everybody must know this one. What is the ranking of Jamaica right now?
Good.
All right, somebody has the mic right here.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Chisholm. I am from the Sam Sharp Teachers College. And the answer for the question is Tier 2 upper head.
Right? So we're going to have Malik. Well, you're going to get a shirt and a bag. And it's a bag of goodies. Malik, you coming? All right, we're going to ask you to come up because we want you to do it properly. It's a nice photo opportunity, and you get a photo with DSP Berry. All right. All right, very good. All right, so how many ways can you be trafficked? All right, so we're going on that side of the room now. That side of the room, the far corner of the room. Okay, go ahead. Someone has a mic. Okay, go ahead at the back.
My name is Gina Lewis from the St. James High School, and there are 16 ways you can be trafficked.
Very good. There are 16 ways in which you can be trafficked. Run, come. You have to run. And then now the final question in this section, because yes, once again, there will be other prizes and surprises after this. I would like someone to name at least 3 ways in which you can be trafficked. So she said it's 16 ways, but we need at least 3 ways.
Hello.
All right, wait.
Good morning. 3 ways. My name is Trishan Williams. My name is Rachel Ward.
All right, guys. All right. Right. So we're going to allow the 2 of you who have started to talk to go. But guess the trick now. If that person do 3, you can't mention that 3, I think that's fair because it's 16 ways.
All right, so 3 ways.
Go.
You have forced labor, organ harvesting, and you have forced marriage.
All right, congratulations. Run, come. Be active. All right, and then the other person, other 3 ways.
So the other 3 ways that you can be
Wait, I'm not seeing the person. All right. All right, go ahead.
So my name is Trishan Williams. I'm from Manning School, and the other 3 ways you can be trafficked is surrogacy, forced marriage, and forced begging.
Wasn't forced marriage mentioned? Yes, I am sorry, but you did a good job, but that was mentioned. Right. Come again.
So,
and next section, this section right here.
Good afternoon, my name is Nathan. Good afternoon, my name is Nathan Morgan from Jamaica College. Another 3 ways that you can identify human trafficking is sex tourism, child trafficking, and forced begging.
That's correct? All right, very good. Run, come. So that is the end of this section. And there will be more prizes and surprises afterwards. Once again, just give yourself a round of applause and also a round of applause to DSP Berry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir?
And now we re-invite Mrs. Barnaby Cuff to resume the program.
Put your hands together for DSP Berry. Please stay, DSP Berry and Christina, for doing that very engaging session. DSP Berry, please don't leave, sir. We have a presentation for you. Put your hands together for them one more time, everyone. Based on the responses, I know that a lot was learned and there is still much more to go. So I'm going to invite right now IBI Ambassador Cheryl Jarrett. She's coming to do a presentation to DSP Carl Berry. Put your hands together for her as she comes.
DSP Carl Berry, on behalf of all of us, I would like to thank you for your presentation. It has been very inspiring. I'm sure a lot of us, or all of us, should have learned something. And I thank you for coming.
Thank you so very much, sir. All right, so you're welcome, sir. We're going into our next discussion this morning, and we're looking at the issue of how does one cope? What are some of the life-altering issues? Is trafficking more prevalent in one gender than the other? And so for this segment, I'm going to invite our moderator, IBI Ambassador Mr. Darren Miller, who will guide the discussion on masking human trafficking. Put your hands together for him as he comes.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a good afternoon, and I want us to show that. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it is morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? Good, good. Well, listen, today in this segment having to do with unmasking human trafficking, I want to invite to the lectern to be seated here with me Ms. Shemery McKenzie. Ms. McKenzie is Chief Executive Officer of the Sungate Foundation, which is a program supervisor, or she's a program supervisor for the Woodhouse Diagnostic Center. And also joining us will be Mr. Andre Davis, who is Senior Associate Counselor and Clinical Supervisor at Family Life Ministries. And rounding out the panel will be Dr. Leith Dunn, who I'm sure most of you will know from the University of the West Indies. She's Senior Lecturer, Head of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies. Please make them welcome. And so what we'll be doing, ladies and gentlemen, I also want us to be as engaging as possible. Certainly the panelists will be. We want to have a discussion concerning the true dynamic of human trafficking. We would have got some statistics, we would have got some general understanding of what it entails, but we want to understand it a little closer, and each of these experts will be able to assist us in dissecting this monster that has stuck its snout into our lives, not just in Jamaica, but across the globe. And certainly, as we are a global space, becoming a closer unit with the United States, with other parts of the world, we can understand that human trafficking has the potential to thrive unless it is that we do something about it. So, let's understand human trafficking. Again, make them welcome. All right, what I'm going to be doing, there's some concerns, some questions that I have. And I want to be engaging each of us this morning on these concerns. And the first thing I want to throw just to Dr. Leith, to provide a context for us in Jamaica, the nature of human trafficking as it stands. And just after that, we're going to be looking at some of the practical solutions as to how it is that we can contribute to making the chaos that it is dissipate. So what is it, and how can we deal with human trafficking?
Okay, first of all, I want to say thanks very much to the Governor General and Lady Allen and the organizers for organizing this event. People are most vulnerable. The situation of human trafficking in Jamaica has a very gendered profile, in that we always have to think of the vulnerabilities of that as small island developing states. because we have seen the impact of climate change. It's with us every single day, and that increases the risk of trafficking. So if there's a hurricane, if there's a flood, it means that you're always going to have those vulnerabilities. Activity, means, and purpose is the main elements of human trafficking to be present, except in the situation of children, the issue of means is not there. So we're talking about people being deceived, coerced, people being forced into a situation and exploited. And the end goal is exploitation. And I'll talk more about the gender dimensions afterwards, but that is generally our situation.
Absolutely. And perhaps Ms. Mackenzie, you are an ambassador, a human trafficking ambassador. What has your experience been in this capacity, and to what extent have you been working to bring awareness to human trafficking and to see to what extent we can really address the problem?
Thank you. Good morning. It is an honor to be here this morning. It was last July that I was appointed by the National Task Force Against Trafficking for Jamaica as the anti-trafficking ambassador for Jamaica. So that's definitely an honor to give back to my country in that capacity. I have 13 years of experience, but have been doing this work for 9 years. We can talk about that math later. I am a Jamaican native, just to say that. When we talk about human trafficking, the majority of my work has been in the United States, where I have written both federal legislation, state legislation, written residential programs for survivors of trafficking. I've done advocacy initiatives as it relates to the issue, working with survivors in terms of helping them tell their story, but been really speaking and training law enforcement, various professionals, airports, hotels, on really how to identify and respond to this issue. And my personal experience of being a victim of trafficking led me to these initiatives.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later, specifically your experience, and I'm very happy that we have Mr. Davis with us, who is a clinical psychologist, because we want to understand the thinking, the thought behind persons who engage in human trafficking as perpetrators. But we want to also understand victims, when it is that someone would have experienced human trafficking. How do we ensure that these persons are able to recuperate and to be able to go on to live an ordinary life? Perhaps, Mr. Davis, you could assist us in that.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share with you this morning.
1, 2.
Thank you so much for allowing me to share. I have actually been working with victims who have been trafficked in Jamaica for the past 7 years. My actual degree is in counseling psychology, and I work full-time at Bellevue Hospital in a clinical psychology post. Now, what happens to persons who have actually been trafficked is that they experience what we call trauma. And trauma is an emotional wound resulting from a shocking event or a series of events that change the psychology and the mental thinking process of the persons who have actually gone through the various experiences. So, for example, we will find that persons who have experienced trafficking will have difficulty with sleep, have difficulty building relationships with people, having difficulties with for example, having recurring dreams. They might have flashbacks of the experiences of what they have experienced. They might find themselves being very irritable. And in some instances, some people develop what we call Stockholm Syndrome, where they will actually begin to form an alliance with the very persons who have actually trafficked them. So some may fall in love with the person that has trafficked them, and then they actually end up sometimes working against the police, working against the very persons who would seek to rescue them. That's a very difficult thing sometimes for people to understand, but we learned about Stockholm out of the experiences in the past of persons who are placed in hostage situations. So there are many, many things that happens with persons who actually go through the experience of being trafficked.
One of the things that I came across recently in some reading is that, interestingly, females are increasingly becoming the perpetrators of human trafficking. One would think that it's the males who would be engaging in this, but the thinking is that because you are female, you will likely be more appealing to a potential victim of human trafficking. Perhaps Miss Dunn, could you assist us to understand a little better why it is that our females are being engaged in this particular area as a perpetrator, as we are seeing in society today?
So we have to look at inequalities. We have to look at things like poverty that DSP Berry said. And when you look at our profile of poverty, we recognize that single female-headed households tend to be larger, they earn less, and are more vulnerable, although males individually have a higher level of poverty. So some of the motivation could be desperation around poverty, yes? But not all poor people will be willing to exploit persons, right? We also recognize that there are inequalities in terms of power and decision making. So that female may be acting on her own, but usually it is part of a larger network that may be, in fact, directed by a male. We also need to think of the particular areas in which women would be used. So, for example, sexual exploitation is one of the key areas in which we have human trafficking. We need to think also of domestic workers. Domestic servitude is another form of, and therefore you'd see more females in that area, although we recognize. I think also we need to recognize the value system. And I'm really glad that we're having this discussion in the I Believe program, because I think part of what we need to do is to get back in revaluing who we are, recognizing that we're children of God and we cannot exploit people.
It's a very interesting point on which to pause, because the question may arise among students, among working professionals, as to how do we deal with an individual who may find themselves in an area of prostitution willingly. If somebody decides to go into that area, and it is something that we could also discuss with, I know Ms. Carol Palmer from the Justice Ministry is here, and also Ms. Diane Gordon-Harris. If someone decides that they're going to be going into that area willingly, is it considered trafficking, and how do we deal with that particular dynamic?
Okay, so there are two sides of this issue, what we call sex work. Some females, we know that sex work involves both males and females, but it is primarily females. And some may go in because they see it as a way of earning an income to provide the needs for their family. But there are others who feel that this is my body and I should be able to do anything that I want with it. So we always need to remember those two elements. Now, if there is deception, coercion, and exploitation, those are key elements for human trafficking. So an individual, it is not always...
Coercion.
Yes, deception, coercion, fraud. So I want to, so for example, I see an advertisement for masseuse. Yes? I go to the place and say, I'd like to apply for the job. And then I recognize that I am deceived into having to provide sexual acts, which was not part of what I thought I was getting into. So some women will go along with it, but others will back out. And it is traumatic to find out that you applied for a job on the face of it, and then you find out that the ultimate aim was sexual exploitation. So we need to be very careful about not seeing all sex work, not all prostitution as trafficking. And that is why it is so important for us to have this discussion. Yes?
Even human smuggling being a distinction
totally
human
different. I might want to get into the US. I might pay someone for my visa, and we're very creative on that, and a passport. Once I cross the border and I pay the money and get my documents, I'm free to do what I want. The difference with human trafficking is that I can start out like that, but they say, hang on a minute here, you have to pay back for the airfare, you have to pay for the accommodation, and these are the conditions of what you have to do now.
Economic bondage.
Economic bondage and denial of your human rights and freedom. So we need to be very clear that they are different, but one can be linked to the other.
And a simple way in remembering the difference between smuggling and trafficking is just understanding that when we're talking about smuggling, that's transportation base, right? So the whole existence of smuggling has to deal with transportation. When we're talking about human trafficking, that's exploitation based. Right? And it can, as Dr. Dunn mentioned, you can start out with it being smuggling and then it ends up being trafficking. So if, I'm gonna give you an example to make it real, right? So we're in Jamaica and we want to go foreign, right? Cause time hard at Jamaica, right? So I link Dr. Davis and I said, you have the hookup? And he said, yes. And pay him some money. When I get to the US, the relationship ends, right? I can continue to live my life because now I got to the US and everything is fine, right? I evade borders, right? Because he gave me the right paperwork. That's smuggling, right? That relationship ends. It was all about transportation. Trafficking is now, I go to Mr. Davis and I said, hey, may I try to go foreign? He give me paperwork and say, yeah, man. But then he has his friends that's going to meet me at the airport, right? And they're going to promise me this job, right? I got this nice hotel you can work at, but you're not doing the duties that you were promised. You're doing other things. You're not being paid what you were promised. You're doing other things. So that's when it becomes trafficking. So now you're being exploited.
What are some of the industries, Sherry? Perhaps I'll stay with you. Some of the industries that we find most instances of human trafficking taking place.
Well, DSP Berry mentioned 13 different ways. The Polaris Project actually has 25 different ways in which someone can traffic. So we see the hotel industry. When we talk about trafficking, a lot of people think sex trafficking is the primary form of trafficking when it is labor trafficking, because we're all beneficiaries of labor trafficking. So we're talking about the hotels. We can talk about, the clothing industry. There's so many examples of just when you come to mind of when someone is being exploited for someone else's profit. That's the common denominator that we're talking about that makes it trafficking, is someone being exploited and is someone profiting from that exploitation.
Mr. Davis, do you come across many victims? Certainly today, as we see, we look at the statistics and we realize that there are, in fact, numbers of note concerning victims of human trafficking. Do you come across persons a lot like this, and how have you been able to deal with victims of human trafficking?
The victims that we encounter in Jamaica are often for labor or sometimes into the sex trade. How we try to assist the person is, first of all, to come to terms with the fact that they have found themselves in the circumstances that they're in. That's number one. Number two, many of them have developed mental health issues, and that now becomes a lot of the work. So, for example, we have seen persons here who will suffer from develop major depressive disorders, anxiety disorders. We will see persons who develop what we call post-traumatic stress. And very often that means that the intervention has to be where you provide support, you provide therapy, and it often involves many, many hours of sitting with this person, helping the person to tell their story at a time that they are willing and able to. Because we must never, ever force a person to become vulnerable with us and to share their story until when they are ready. Because what will happen is that they can actually begin to decompensate, and we can actually have a crisis develop on us. Or they just shut down.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I wanted to mention a couple of areas that I think we need to think about because we're targeting young people today. Anybody interested in sports here, young ladies and gentlemen? Okay. So one of the things that we're valued for as a country is our sporting prowess, yes? You want to take advantage of the talent and enhance it. You want to play for a football club. Now, one of the areas of trafficking is in relation to sports. Young men in particular being exploited and trafficked because they want to aspire to become world athletes, yes? Another is entertainment. So you going along thinking that you're going with this on a tour, and you can in fact be trafficked through the association. So you think you're going to be doing one thing, to dance or to sing or what have you, and you can in fact be trafficked. And I signal those two because there are young people, it's targeting young people. But a third is the issue of work and study abroad. So some of our students at the University of the West Indies want to go abroad to be able to earn their fees, work during the summer and earn their fees. And whenever I sign those letters, I always give them a little pamphlet. And I want to thank the National Task Force to say, here are vulnerabilities. You need to look out for these things and be careful that you are not exploited and trafficked in this way.
What does the legislation have to say about all of this? Because I know that Jamaica has signed on to the UN's trafficking protocol, ratified that in 2002, I believe it was. And we also have developed our own Trafficking Act. Is it good enough as it is? To what extent have we been using it to bring persons to justice who are perpetrators of trafficking?
I think we've done very well, but it's always a work in progress. And I again want to commend the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons and successive governments of keeping this issue on the agenda. So the thing is that DSP Berry mentioned the cyber, these new emerging issues. And our research shows that males and females will expose themselves in different ways on the internet. We want to guard against that particularly. But the legislation is something that we always have to keep looking at. And in the study we did for the National Task Force in 15-16, the results showed that we were pretty much consistent with the Palermo Protocol in terms of our legislation. But in addition to that, we have a national policy for gender equality. We have ratified things like the Convention on the Rights of the Child and that Child Care Protection Act. So we have a lot of policies, commitments that we have made internationally as well as regionally and everything. What this next step is to make sure that everybody knows their rights. Everybody knows what our responsibilities are, and to build awareness so we can identify victims, but also to be able to refer them. So that's the long answer to your short question.
Quite all right. Go ahead.
I always believe that the rule of law is not enough, right? You can have the best laws on the books, and if people aren't reporting, right, so that law enforcement can actually do their job, all we have is this great legislation and we're not doing anything with it. So this is why this is everyone's problem. That's why human trafficking is everyone's problem. That's why the slogan is if you spot them, stop them, and report them, right? That's where law enforcement is counting on you when you see something to report it so that we can actually utilize what's on the books. Or else it's just going to be there and cases need to be brought forward so that the perpetrators can be effectively prosecuted.
Go ahead, Mr.
I want
Davis.
to just emphasize the fact that when our young people are exposed to human trafficking, when I have a young person that comes to me who has been raped 16 times in one night, when I have a young person who has been transported from one location to another location and is disoriented in time and space because the perpetrator has kept that person away, has kept them from family. When I have a young person who ends up needing to have plastic surgery, who has become infertile, who now has to deal with the reality that they have a brain injury because they were battered. When I'm dealing with a young person who has to deal with the reality that the person was raped, they became pregnant, they had an abortion, they were impacted by the long-term pain of having to lose that child. This is the reality of what I have to sit in front of me. And so I'm just being very real here, because it's easy to just kind of talk in the pie in the sky. This is real stuff. Our young people who get trapped in these issues, very often for them, for the rest of their lives, they are going to be scarred, and they're going to have to be dealing with the reality of a life of struggle. And we have to be able to equip them to be able to survive and to find a way in the midst of that pain. And this is serious stuff. We need to understand as a nation, our young people are at risk, but if we are active in doing what is necessary, we can maybe save hundreds and hundreds of them from having to walk through some of these experiences. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when a person is trafficked, they often now have to deal with the reality of how do they define themselves. They also have to deal with the stigma that comes from having to now walk into the situation, and the trauma in their minds of reliving the experiences on a nightly basis. This is the kind of stuff that as a therapist have to sit and listen and help people to find a way through the maze so that they can come to a certain level of wholeness.
Do you believe that there's a correlation? You did mention mental health. Do you believe that there's a correlation between instances of human trafficking, persons being trafficked, and many of the mental health issues we have today? And I say this against the context of a perception, it could be real or just a perception, of many of our young men who we see on the corners wiping the windscreen. Are they, many of them, doing it on their own volition? Or could it be that some of them are being trafficked, and others as well that we may take for granted? Do you believe that there is that correlation?
We don't have the research to back that up unless Doc has information on that. What I am addressing is when a person has actually been trafficked. What happens with them mentally? And also what happens with them physically? Because the ability to move a person from being a victim to being a survivor and somebody who overcomes is a very long journey and a very expensive journey in many respects. Because, again, we don't really have a lot of therapists in Jamaica who are necessarily trained in the whole area of the management of persons who have gone through trauma. We're now building that capacity as more and more persons come on board and as we expose and train persons in the field. And it is very challenging work, because for the therapist, there's also the danger of secondary trauma, because you now have to sit and listen to the issues as well. So that is the other side that comes along with the journey. And I'm sure you have had to walk through your own process in walking through. Maybe you might want to comment on what happens in the journey.
Well, one thing I want to say is that there's no such thing as a single issue, right? When we talk about the issues that we're facing in our society, intersectionality is at the core. There's a nexus, there's a connection between one issue and another issue. So when we're talking about human trafficking, there's a connection between trafficking and poverty, right? Or gender-based violence, right? So there is a nexus, there's a connection, right? So human trafficking is not this single issue. It's not a standalone issue. It's connected to other crimes in our community. And as a therapist, I'm sure when you see this, when we talk about like what are the trauma that you're faced in your life, trafficking is one piece, right? Poverty could be another piece, right? Gender-based violence, the lack of equality, lack of opportunity, right? So those are other factors that contributes to one being trafficked. But in talking about trauma is unpacking trauma is a lifelong process. When we talk about individuals who have been trafficked, we don't just recover victims, and I hate that word rescue, right? Notice I use the word recover. We don't just recover victims and we say, hey, we get them connected to a therapist, and they get therapy and life continues. It doesn't work like that. I have been out the life for over 12 years, and I still am dealing with my trauma. Because when we're talking about trauma, a lot of us hear of PTSD. Raise your hand if you ever heard of PTSD, right? PTSD is a single traumatic experience, right? So when you hear the term PTSD, that is one single experience. When we talk about trafficking victims, they are experiencing what we call complex trauma. So that is multiple traumatic experiences, right? So we talk about being raped on one occasion, that's a single traumatic experience. But now you're being raped, you have a gun placed to your head, right? You are forced to commit other crimes, right? And let's just stick on rape for a second. Mr. Davis mentioned having a client being raped 6 times in a day. 16 times in a day, right? That's 16 experiences that one is unable to process and have to carry on the next day, and being faced with additional trauma that comes on the next day. So you guys understand now, like, that picture of what trafficking victims face, right?
Very valuable. And perhaps what we need to do is to really look closer at the extent to which, I can't re-emphasize it enough, our own responsibilities as citizens who are observing the world around us, who know of individuals who are in these exploitative conditions. We may not see it as being technically trafficking, but we know that an individual or a group of individuals are being affected. And a lot of us sometimes are perhaps afraid to report, or a lot of us are afraid and perhaps don't know who to speak with. But that is why we're here today. Because we have the National Integrity Action, we have the Gender Institute, we have the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons, and many other organizations. We have the Trafficking Unit that is out of the Jamaica Constabulary Force that focuses specifically on that. I know Ms. Diane Gordon-Harris is here. She's still here. Could you raise your hand? Children's Advocate, among other persons who are specifically empowered to deal with situations such as these, but we need your help, we need your support. So we want to have that conversation today among our youth to really look at solutions, both at the local level, the community level, the national level, and at the international level, so that we can really deal with these challenges. So I want to just have some closing comments. And then right after that, we have Ms. Henika Watkis-Porter, who is in the audience, and she's going to be assisting me to field some questions from our students this afternoon, who, by the way, I want to remind to use the hashtag YCC2019 in your tweets and your Instagram posts, YCC2019 and hashtag Stop Human Trafficking. So we want to engage with that and keep the discussion going on social media. Have the discussion with your colleagues so that we can keep it alive with view to stopping the challenge. Closing comments. Let's start with Mr. Davis.
I think it's very important for us to develop what we call trauma awareness. When the society has to develop the capacity to understand what trauma looks like, how trauma changes people's brains, their way of thinking and looking at the self, and to provide support, affirmation, empathy, as well as to put your hands in your pocket to help to support those in the journey of recovery. I also believe that it's important that we have the training and the expansion of training of persons who are able to work with persons who go through the experiences of trauma, and that in the future we will see the development of those skill sets in the population.
Okay, thank you. I want us to think of the 4 P's, as Mrs. Palmer would say. There's the prevention, and what we're doing today is building awareness so that people will be more aware about what human trafficking is, the various forms of trafficking, and how we can contribute to preventing. Then there is the prosecution of how we ensure we collect evidence to be able to take a case through. There's a protection, which is how do we deal with the victims of human trafficking, yes? And there's a policy environment. And we have a policy, we have an action plan. My final comment is to say, let us remember that in doing research to understand prevalence in terms of doing the protection, everything, always remember the gender dimensions. And by that I mean not the biological sex, but looking at these social relations, the roles and responsibilities, and ensuring that we collect data disaggregated by sex in looking at the problem itself and finding solutions. So we speak about gender-sensitive solutions to human trafficking. Thank you.
I want us all to keep in mind that no one is immune from becoming a victim of trafficking. I was trafficked for 18 months of what I consider to be severe torture in every sense of the word torture. As a Jamaican, you know, in most households, discipline is of importance, right? And I'm from that household where I was raised with discipline. It was a Christian household, so I had the Christian principles as well. And I end up being a victim of trafficking. Speak to the people that you love in your life about trafficking. Young people, have a trusted adult. If it's not your parents, find a trusted adult that you can talk to. There's this thing that we have called intuition, or you may know it as your gut feeling. If your gut feeling tells you something is not right, believe your gut instincts. Believe that intuition that's saying something isn't right. Find a trusted adult and speak to that trusted adult about that matter. Don't just keep it to yourself. Adults, when our young people come to you with situations that appears to be wrong, believe them. Believe them. Don't point fingers. Don't blame them, because those are some of the reasons why people who have been trafficked don't come forward. Because even when I look at the Jamaican culture and we look at 16-year-old girls caught up in this, sometimes when I speak to people on like Facebook and stuff, they're like, I fear her fault, she love man, she too fast. But that's a 16-year-old child whose brain hasn't fully developed, where an adult is playing on that child, yet we're blaming the child. Instead of holding that adult accountable for their actions and understanding that, yes, there's a presenting factor here, but we're still dealing with a child. No matter how mature they present, whether that's psychologically or physically, it is still a child. And a 16-year-old is not an adult. And oftentimes I hear, she should have known better. She has 16. She know right from wrong. The human brain doesn't fully develop until about 24, 25 years old. So a 16-year-old is still not able to make rational choices. And we need to understand that.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a good note on which to end. And to clap a bigger round of applause for all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Shimmery Mackenzie, Dr. Leith Dunn, and Mr. Andre Davis. So, we're going to be throwing the floor open for some questions for our panelists. Where is Ms. Watkins Porter? There she is in the back. So, if you have questions, yes, there are persons who are going to be going around with a mic. I want you to identify yourself, state your name, ask your question to one of the panelists. I want us to direct our questions. Or if you have it for all three of them, but we want to limit it to one question per person. Ms. Watkins Porter is to my right, but there are other persons with mics. So let us start with hands. Right at the front here, to my left, there's a young lady in purple right at the left. Could somebody take a microphone to her, please? Right at the front here.
Okay, perhaps before we get into the questions, I just want to also say thank you too for leading the panel, and to the panel for leading us into an insightful conversation, discussion, or that we can start. We have been here and we've been listening, and I'm sure emotions ran high, different emotions as we listened to the experience of Ms. Mackenzie. We listened to Dr. Dunn as well as Mr. Davis. I have a question to pose before we hear the questions from some of our delegates. And the question I'm posing to us delegates is, we know that we have the laws. Laws are in place now in terms of fighting against human trafficking. But the question I have to pose to you is, having heard all the presentations prior, do you think you are in a better position to do something to stop human trafficking? And do you even think that laws are enough? Can you do anything to stop it? What can you do, if any? All right, we have a hand over here.
Good morning. I am Crystal Whittaker from the Manning School. So based on what I have learned, I think that it is up to us when we see something happening, when we see persons looking withdrawn, or we see persons having symptoms of depression, or they look like they are dazed or lost. We should ask questions, inquire about them, because as said, they might not even know they have been trafficked and they are experiencing some things. And if we can see physically that something is wrong, then we can ask questions and find out more about their mentality, and we can report to the persons in charge.
Thank you so much. Give her a round of applause. And so we need to get rid of this informal culture, right? Because we have that as part embedded deep beneath our culture, that informal for dead. We must talk. When we see things are happening that are not right, we must talk. If you see persons looking out of source, we must show concern. I know you had pointed out someone, Darren, over that side, but I know earlier the back was at a big disadvantage. So I'm going to go to the back with questions. So now you have your chance to ask any questions regarding the presentations that just went. Anybody? All right, nobody from the back. Okay, let me go over here. All right, and then my other assistants with Mike can help around the area. I'm just going to go right here.
Good afternoon. My name is Kimon Hines from the Ferncourt High School. I have a question for Ms. Shamir Mackenzie. It's probably insensitive, or it probably take you back. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. How are you recovered, or how did you escape from human trafficking? That's my question. I'm curious.
I believe in this setting there is no inappropriate questions, because we're all here to learn. So please do not believe that your question is insensitive or inappropriate. I believe you're asking the question to have a better understanding of the issue. So thank you for your question. It was someone that, when I escaped my trafficker, it was a stranger that actually helped me escape. I was running around in a gated community in Florida after hearing the sound of his gun, and I had a previous encounter with his gun where he placed the gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger. So this time when I heard the sound of his gun, I said to myself, this time he's making sure the gun is loaded. And when I ran out in the community, a stranger saw me and asked me what I was doing and helped me get away from him. In terms of recovery, that's a lifelong process. While I didn't have any physical ailments, I have friends who are unable to have children, or who have come out to life with sexual transmitted diseases, but the mental health is still present, right? That's common amongst all victims, right? Overcoming PTSD it's not easy, right? I have to walk around with some candy that's called hazardously sour candy because I may be triggered by things that I face, smell, see, people that I see, and my brain is not able to understand that I'm no longer living in the past, but I am here, I'm in this moment, and sometimes my coping skills, which is basically grounding myself to say, Shamir, you're here, you're on a stage, you're wearing yellow, you're sitting beside Dr. Dunn. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes the brain needs something like ice cold water or burning fire for you to actually touch it, for it to shut off, that you're no longer living in that past. So coping is an everyday process, right? It's just being in healthy relationships and really using my coping skills and having supportive people in my life, but more importantly, my faith in Jesus Christ have really helped me to overcome that.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am here. I'm going to try my best to formulate it into a question, short and spicy. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a strong believer of the quote that JFK said some time ago while he was living. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Miss Mackenzie, you referred to something that really impacts me while I was in my seat, and that was the culture. You see, our culture today is one that we love to bash people instead of trying to find a way in how we can help people. And so what I want to find out now is how can we shred the see I'm blind, hear and deaf, and the I will not speak, and I will not say this, and I will not say that culture. I want to find out how we can deal with that culture, because once we start becoming responsible, once we start to care for each other, I think this whole human trafficking will reduce.
Right. Is that a question or a comment? Excellent. I think he answered his own question.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenika Morris. I attend the University of the West Indies, Mona, and I am studying psychology. So, this is very interesting to me, and a few things came to mind. So I have a question for Dr. Leith. So we're talking about the victims of human trafficking, but I'm just really curious, thinking about psychology and how different things can just affect one's mental state. Like with regards to the P's that you gave for prosecution of those the persons who have been, heading the human trafficking, those you've caught, or those, the police or soldiers have caught, have they done extensive interrogation and just finding out of probably what would have caused or led them to commit such acts that, have been prevalent in not only Jamaica, but it's a global matter. And another thing is, while I was in high school, I encountered a lot of students, and, they would relate to me as another student, but at home they would have an issue and they would need to report it to the parents, but the parents, they're just not, you can't approach them, so they have, I believe, like probably something should be implemented where the parents are taught or trained or something, to recognize and notice the signs of a child who is possibly suffering or experiencing, human trafficking.
Okay, thank you very much for those two linked questions. The issue of how we relate in our families is something I want to put squarely on the table. Shamir spoke about improving communication, but the whole idea of rebuilding our families and improving communication and respecting each other is something that can actually be a buffer against human trafficking. I know of initiatives like the Victoria Mutual Foundation, we have a Parenting Support Commission, lots of initiatives, so let us support those as part of it. But I want to also say that we need to look at the culture of discipline in our families, this beating of the pick to them, right? I really think that we have to find ways of disciplining that do not involve violence and physical contact, because the research shows us that those are push factors. When we talk about children being worthless, like, or we look at the color thing or what have you, how we relate in the family can in fact be part of the solution if we change that whole paradigm. In terms of the first part of it, we have a robust anti-trafficking task force, but also within the police, and increasingly there is clarity in terms of what you do if you suspect someone is a victim of trafficking. Who is responsible for what? How do you report it, and all of that. And we have a project, there's a project between the government of the US and the government of Jamaica in terms of strengthening issues around prevention, about prosecution, and doing research, but also building capacity in the Ministry of Health, Education, and also among faith-based organizations. And I just want to stop and pause to acknowledge and thank Reverend Dr. Margaret Fowler, who, from Mr. Berry's presentation, you'd have seen was in charge of the Protection Subcommittee. Unfortunately, she died a few weeks ago, and she has contributed her publications to the task force. We met with Mrs. Palmer yesterday, and we're looking to see how best we can locate those so the research continues, yeah? And all of us. I also want to just acknowledge several resource materials that are available, free, gratis, and for nothing. This is the cartoon, that booklet that Mr. Berry spoke about, but also the report of the National Rapporteur on Trafficking. So we have a lot of resources that we can use to become stronger advocates. And as I said, everyone is on board. So family, strengthening that, but also supporting our officials in terms of investigation, providing information, just pass it on so that they can increase the number of convictions.
All right, we're down to the wire, Henika. So quick questions, ladies and gentlemen, and quick responses. We have to wrap this segment, all right?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joni Brown, and I'm from Bethlehem Moravian College. So my mom would tell you the story of how she got pregnant with me. My grandma sent her up to Kingston to get a better life, so to speak. And that's where she got engaged in activities where she should not have been in. I noticed, especially in my family and some other families in the rural area, they want better for their children and they can't afford it. So what they do, they send them to other relatives. Some of these relatives, they're very mean in a sense, because they work you out. You wash, you cook, you clean, you do everything for them. And people don't look at that and think that it's trafficking. But in my mind, I think that's some serious trafficking going on right there. When persons take their children, they can't afford it anymore, and they send them to other persons' houses, that's really putting your child in a vulnerable state, and I don't think it should be happening. But I'm not sure what team unit is responsible for trafficking, but what is that unit doing about that problem?
Okay, thank you very much for that. This cartoon booklet, which was produced by the National Task Force Against Trafficking, tells Sean's story. This issue we have of child shifting, first of all, having children that we're not going to want to be responsible for is part of the problem, and we need to find a solution to that. But Sean's story speaks exactly about that, and the fact that we need to ensure that we are all using our eyes and ears. So if we see a child not going to school in our community, that we report it. You can be charged $500,000 on the Child Care and Protection Act if you don't. And they do follow up on those things. So let us be all vigilant and being our brothers and sisters keepers.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm Danielle McGee from the William Nib High School. My question is, do you think these criminals have secret connections with persons in authority that makes it so hard to prevent this organized criminal activity?
right, I am sorry, we're just going to have to take the final comment to that question. Was it a comment or a question? I got distracted. We're going to take the final because we're out of time. I know you're all eager to share and to ask questions, but do forgive us because we do have limited time, all right? So that's the final, that's the wrap after that.
Of course they do, right? If we look at the recent headlines with Jeffrey Epstein, or Epstein, however you pronounce his last name, that's one individual where I used to work for an agency, Shared Hope International, that for about 6 years now, they were trying to take him down because of his acts of engaging in human trafficking, but his power and wealth helped him to evade criminal charges. So when we look at trafficking, right, there are various levels to trafficking, right? And depending on your wealth, some people do evade charges, as with any other criminal enterprise.
Ms. Mackenzie, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Davis, and of course, ably led by Darren. Thank you so much. You have inspired us.
But just before we go, there are some gifts that we would like to give to our panelists. So I'm just going to ask a rep to come around with them. Quick presentation. It's from the I Believe initiative. Let's just make these presentations very quickly to our panelists. You want to shout out to your school?
I want to shout out my school, Westwood. I see you guys.
All right, thank you so very much. Can you put your hands together one more time for all our panelists and, of course, our moderator? And I'm going to invite Mr. Courtney Johnson to come with a gift for Miss Shamir McKenzie. Put your hands together. Oh. Jerome Johnson is coming with a gift for Dr. Leith Dunn. And Malik Kellier is coming, no, that's Romaine Kenton is coming with a gift for Andre Davis. Thank you so very much, panelists. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And I know based on what we just heard a while ago, I don't know about anybody else, but my toes were kind of squeezing up in my shoes, you know, hearing about the reality that we're facing. And especially because back in the day, this kind of thing you just kind of see on TV and in the movies, but it has reached home. And so we have to do our part to help in the fight against human trafficking. Amen, everyone? Amen. Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. So, right at this time, we're going to hear a poem from Randy McLaren, and this one is entitled, Not for Sale. Put your hands together as he comes.
There are pull and push factors, socio-economic and cultural matters. When life is a mess and people hopeless, traffickers start show interest, promising jobs, but before you say yes, make the proper checks. Call the police, call the consular. 188 Ministry of Labor. My people, I said we cannot fail. Join the campaign. Not for sale, leave the children. Not for sale, stop traffic them. Not for sale, leave the women, the men. Not for sale, stop enslave them, Lord. Not for sale, vibration, not people. Not for sale, make we halt the vehicle. Not for sale, it's a crime, it's wrong. Trafficking a gone for far too long. And it's a galang for far too human. Trafficking a gone for too long. For too long. For too... Pain, sorrow, Jamaica today, strange country tomorrow. If I won, that's one too many. Stop it, modern day slavery. Lord, mama, papa, no sell your sons and daughter. Forced labor, Lord, forced to steal. Prostitution, that's far from ideal. Watch ya. Taken by land, the water overseas, 24/7 Bakra overseas, 24/7 work, no seas, no ease, no matter how them fall upon them knees, but please, please. That's why we cry, wave the banner higher. Not for sale, leave the children. Not for sale, stop traffic them. Not for sale, leave the women, the men. Not for sale, stop enslave them, Lord. Not for sale, vibration, not people. Not for sale, make we halt the vehicle. Not for sale is a crime, it's wrong. Trafficking a gone for far too long. And it a galang for far too human. Trafficking a gone for too long. Can you imagine? One woman servicing 50 men one day. And with them station her, she better stay. Risk her life if she ever disobey. Who want to live through the night and see the next day? She have to work the money and more work at the pay. But you see the bright smile, you know, see the effort, gyrating hips, every muscle hurt. You see the high heels, you know, see the deep scars. Will the souls ever heal? Them travel so far, Lord, under bondage, deceitfully recruited and transported, physically, sexually exploited, future blighted. My people, perpetrators can be male or female. So remove the veil. Join me, cause we not for sale, leave the children. Not for sale, stop traffic them. Not for sale, leave the women, the men. Not for sale, stop enslave them. Boy, not for sale, vibration, not people. Not for sale, make we halt the vehicle. Not for sale is a crime, it's wrong. Trafficking a go on for far too long. And it's a galang for far too human. Trafficking a go on for too long, for too long, for too long, and it a go on for too long. So if you're here this morning, we're going to say it clear and let them hear, because we are not for sale. Everybody say? No, everybody say? Come again. Leave the children now. Stop traffic them. Leave the women, the men. Stop enslave them, Lord. Not for sale, vibration, not people. Not for sale, make we halt the vehicle. Not for sale, it's a crime, it's wrong. Trafficking a go on for far too long. And it a go long for far too human. Trafficking a go on for too long. For too long. For too long. And it a go on for too long. Not for sale. Not for sale. Blessings.
Put your hands together one more time for Randy McLaren with that one, Not for Sale. Come on, another round of applause for him, everybody. All right, not for sale. We're not for sale, or children aren't for sale, or adults aren't for sale. We want to ensure that human trafficking in Jamaica and the wider world is, abolished, because we call it the modern day slavery. We want to ensure that we eradicate human trafficking in especially our Jamaican society. All right, so it is now time for lunch. Anybody hungry? Oh, wow. If you're hungry, say amen. Wow. All right, well, we're not going to have you here all day and to not feed you adequately. So right now, we're going to pause for lunch, and let me just give you some information. So lunch will be served in the exhibition hall, and the ushers are standing by.